Start a little bit early as we usually do. Welcome to the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat. Start a little bit early so people can start to join. They can get their alerts out there on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we will start at the top of the hour. So good to see everybody again. We will start talking in a few minutes. Hopefully we have a few of you join us. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat. Uh, we're back again, August 19th, 2022. I don't know if a lot of you are going to show up just because we have skipped the last 3 weeks. We've done that because I was sick. I was traveling. I was sick. I was out at DEF CON. And so anybody that's coming back, I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see a few more people. I'm definitely monitoring comments. I can see the comments from YouTube and from LinkedIn. So if you're out there, please say hello. Let me know that you're there and you're alive, and let me know how you are, how your week's been and stuff. It's the end of the day on Friday, most places. And yes, Grayson, good long time no see. Saw you out there at Vegas, Grayson. It was good to see you. I was busy. Sorry I couldn't spend more time with you. So hello. But yes, if you are joining us for LinkedIn or YouTube, please get the comments out there. I'll answer them verbally. And, unfortunately, I can't answer the LinkedIn. They haven't linked it up on StreamYard yet. So I'll, for those that I can respond to on YouTube, I'll do that. But it's good to be back, finally streaming once again. I did miss it. I kind of thought about, doing it on Friday at DEF CON while everything was going on. But as Grace can tell you, it was a madhouse at DEF CON 30. And certainly down at the ICS Village, we were down in the back corner of one of the main areas for DEF CON, out there at the Caesar Forums, which is kind of like, it's not the Caesar Palace. It's not where the casino is. It's a separate facility that is just a conference room. It's fairly large. I was impressed, but we had to walk all the way to the back corner. And the ICS Village was multiple rooms, multiple conference rooms. Still, I mean, we didn't open it up so that it was like a large central area. We were back in the corner. We had different areas split up. So even though it was kind of it was difficult to initially understand what the ICS Village was, you quickly got the concept because we had a speaker room, which myself and Dylan Lee were manning throughout the thing. We had over 30 speakers that were talking, that pretty much went consistently from the moment we started at 10. We opened the doors to everywhere at 10 o'clock, and then we had speakers all the way until 6 in the evening. And and just had to make sure that they were up and running, that they had all their things. And then Dylan and I were, while everybody's going on, we're constantly walking around, answering people's questions about where they had to go, pointing them to the CTF, to the escape room, and to the microgrid challenge. There are a bunch of challenges out there. So I had a great time meeting everybody. Unfortunately, I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to with everybody, but that's a part of my role that I play. I'm either doing competitions. So if I hadn't been facilitating for Bryson and for Tom, so that they could shake hands and meet as many people as possible and talk to them about the village, I would have been doing either the CTF, the escape room, and the microgrid. I would have played with all of those things. So it was good to see everybody out there. I didn't know a lot of people that got sick. Unfortunately, there are a few people that got sick, and you just need to learn to protect yourself. I was in fist bump mode the whole time. I really appreciated wearing the mask. I think it is important to keep wearing the mask when you're out and about, walking around and stuff like that. It's not quite as important, but when you're in those close proximities, especially when you're conversing, leaning over people, helping people with things, when you're doing that, you need to put the mask on. And certainly, I think that we would have seen a lot more people gotten sick out of there. It's not unexpected that, people get, con flu is a thing, and that COVID is just adding to that. So, I digress. We talk about that all the time now. What's interesting is, and I noticed that somebody pointed it out, is, DEF CON 31, the dates are already up there. I know that Bryson and Tom are already considering what's going on for next year. So expect good things from the village, especially the turnout we experienced. I think that DEF CON can't deny that we aren't pulling in a bunch of people there, and we're not. We are a valuable part of DEF CON right now, and that's due to Bryson's and Tom's hard work, and certainly the other volunteers, as well. So look for us there. Also look for us at S4. So it sounds like, and my understanding is that we will be at S4 this year, one of the booths, so we're gonna have to sit down. I'm gonna have to figure out what Tom wants to do, and certainly they're coming up with some challenges. I finally thought of a good idea. I'm not going to break it, just yet, but I have a pretty good idea. Not necessarily around a CTF, but some challenges that might be pretty cool. So I'm going to see if I can talk Tom into coming up with a way to do that. So we'll break that later if it actually goes forward. So what have I been doing this week? Houston SecCon. So Grayson's talking about Houston SecCon, and it's absolutely important. I actually talking with the team that's over there, they asked me to if I'd like to speak, and I wanted to go out. The ICS Village will be out there, so I know Tom will be out there again. I'm not sure who's going to help him with that. Jason will probably help him, like he helped us at DEF CON. But Houston SecCon is an important one, especially if you're in Texas. Highly recommend that you go out there and just kind of add things to it. Looks like we're being joined by Ron. Hi, Ron. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just kind of talking about DEF CON experience and kind of pimping Houston SecCon, which is coming up soon, that ICS Village will be at. Have you ever been to the Houston SecCon?
I have not, but I'm going to be this year. It was
nice.
one of those things where I just never had time, and I always wanted to go out there. I have lots of friends in Houston, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a good venue. They've been doing a good job keeping that consistent. I think it's been going on for 10 or 12 years now. So just the fact that you keep one of those things going is pretty cool. So I can't be there because unfortunately, fortunately for me, because I'm going to get paid and I'm also going to get a new experience. I'll be going out and assisting an organization with doing an assessment for, I think it's related to the TSA pipeline stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So so that'll be a good experience. But
getting paid's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And getting the experiences too. I keep saying it. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I really think we're giving back. I'm giving back to the industry. Not only am I learning to help other people by going to these engagements, hopefully I'm helping them as well, since they're paying me. So so that's what's going on. Ron, I just want to get through the things I've been working on this week, but please jump in with your thoughts around this. I am working on with a few of the team from the SANS. We are moving forward with the development of the ICS 613. That's a part of my month. This month is developing some of that courseware, and that's the penetration testing class that we really need within the ICS curriculum. We need that. I've been working on engagement scoping slides, and while I was developing those, I realized, wow, I don't think anybody's ever written this down. Some of the, we hear some talks. I've heard some talks, and actually I've been going over some of the talks that I know people have given about properly scoping engagements. Super important when we're talking about control environments. When we're considering the amount of the experience around scoping, pen tests, and security assessments in our corporate environment. There's a lot of considerations for going into OT environments, to control environments, that just add, it's just things that you need to add to your normal stuff. So your normal questions you have to have, but certainly I'm outlining some of those things about getting those engineers in there as quickly as possible to talk about those things.
Let me know if I can informally help. That was oh my gosh, that was excruciating back in the day when I was with Lockheed Martin. We went through a very excruciating process to make sure you could safely do it.
Yeah, and it's important that, and a part of all of these classes, and I think that's where, the SANS class is really, the SANS classes are really geared towards, initially they were geared towards administrators, meaning that the information security professionals, they usually know about security, but we need to educate the admins. And in this case, in the case of the ICS curriculum, we're educating the admins, we're educating the security personnel, but we're also educating all of those organizations that have control environments. They need to know how to scope these things properly. So, so I worked on that. I worked on the IT OT differences as well. I'm actually going through that right now. Leveraging heavily some of the SANS posters that some of the teams, Justin Searle and Dean Parsons, that have put out. Object reuse, right? But I'm putting my own little spin on some of that. Probably the biggest thing is I was in, everybody talks about how, the Dragos show, the Dragos show continues, and they get into everything when we're talking about control environments. But I put this on here for a reason. Yesterday, I watched their pipeline security webinar, and I can't remember his last name, Jim. Mike Hoffman was on there kind of moderating it.
Oh, Jim Gilson.
Jim Gilson, yes.
Yeah.
He did an excellent job outlining every, the considerations for what the directive talks about, what organizations need to do, and how a security assessment can play a part of that. So
Jim's been around the world doing that. He's awesome. From a policy level, even an audit level. I mean, back when I knew him more closely, he was just on site all over doing that kind of work. So he's definitely good for that.
Yeah, I was impressed by the way he laid it out, and what's great is I'm currently scoping like the next effort, and I'm going to be looking at that heavily. I'm going to be reading over the directive again, but I'm definitely, I mean, his model falls into what I do anyways. It just outlines it very specifically, and it's going to be digestible for the clients, and I think that was a part of it. Grayson, I failed to enter to say hello to you. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm still recovering from the crazy week of DEF CON. It was a lot of fun. So sorry I was a little late. I was on here and then didn't realize you had sent out the StreamYard URL, so I had to go chase that down. But
well, until I start getting like 50 people trying to jump into StreamYard, I think I can actually support 10. But so I just put it out. I mean, right now I just put it out there. We're growing, and so we're going. So Tomcat, I see you mentioned we were talking about Vegas. I think we all had a good time in Vegas. Grayson, it was good to good to see you, Grayson, when we were out there.
Yeah, we all tested. I tested negative and doing all that stuff. So good to go on that front. It was a crazy packed DEF CON coming in from last year. You know, I know ICS Village was mostly virtual. So it was great to have people back, and definitely, as you mentioned, there's a lot of interest. That line was huge on that first day, wrapped around the corner. Just
I didn't even and so for people that aren't familiar with DEF CON and the venue and stuff like that, there are, I mean, a line con, like, they're always calling it line con, especially DEF CON, because just to get into the different tracks, the different presentations, some of the villages, especially at the beginning of the day, there's a line. There's a huge line. And so I'm standing outside ICS Village, like Grayson was saying, and then I was like, who's here for the village? And everybody raised their hand. I was like, whoa, okay, I better start talking to people, right? To tell them where to go and what to do, especially since we weren't going into one big area. It was all broken up. So that was an experience. Hello, Martin. Good to see you. So Ron, were you out there?
I was there for Black Hat because I'm a corpo now, but and I didn't stay for DEF CON, although I wish I did this year, but no, got to have FOMO from the Twitter feed.
And I don't want to go into it if you don't want to, but congratulations on some of your business progression.
Oh,
so that's good. That was good to hear.
It means we can do all the things that we need to do now instead of me doing everything and Jory doing everything, and so it's exciting. So.
Yeah, next steps, right? Next steps, really different. I mean, running your own business, especially when there's product involved, there's development, there's people, that whole consideration around integrating other people, whether they're venture capitalists or they're other leaders like CFOs. And so forth, extremely
taxing.
Taxing and challenging time. I mean, and trying to I'm sure you're having thoughts in your head around how much you can trust and stuff like that. It's
we're pretty fortunate. I mean, it's a hot space. It's a space that still needs help. And from the inside, of course, we feel we're doing awesome things, and it's good to get that outside validation, and it's good for the rest of the world to see that this is still a growing space. The big three haven't locked up everything yet, so that's always fun.
So as from it's and I don't know how much you have, like how many people you have helping with development, but certainly development and implementation and getting the word out and stuff like that. But at the same time, all of this has to be taxing. So have all the meetings around these types of things integrating with people that want to invest and lawyers and stuff like that? How much has that taken away from your day-to-day kind of business?
It's fun still. It's a different puzzle, right? So there's the, how can I say it? There's the industry challenge, right? There's just the challenge of, hey, we still have a monitoring visibility problem. So there's like the technical geekiness of that. Well, how do we approach that? But to your point, there's a whole messaging, there's a whole business aspect that's still interesting. And to me, like anything, if you go and Google something, you're like, you only see the worst of it. Like, don't Google symptoms or don't Google, anything else, right? It's just the worst of the worst. And it's almost the same thing with raising money. When you go Google, like, how to do this, what does seed, what does Series A, it's all doom and gloom. And maybe we're fortunate, maybe we're smart, maybe we're both, but like, we really love and understand our market, and raising and the business side of running a venture or an investment, capital invested company has been great. I've loved it. So,
Right.
I don't want to be negative and say I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, but it's been, our investors are awesome. They love it. They're not into the hyper growth, how many people have you hired this week type of model. They're much more, I don't want to say realistic, but they're much more down to earth in the fact that a lot of our lead investors are former CISOs. So number
Good.
one is, hey, do you have a problem that you're solving, as opposed to, hey, we hired 20 people this month. So
Well, that's exciting times for you, and I'm really glad
for sure.
you're on. Hey, Grayson, what have you worked on this week?
So I've been heads down in some assessments since getting back, and so just finalizing some cool stuff with a client. And
can you talk about like the industry sector and kind of what the challenges were or the wins?
Well, we're working with a pretty large pipeline, and so just walking through some of the new changes that are out there and making sure program is aligned and everybody kind of is understood of some of the changes that have happened recently, especially post-colonial. There's been a lot of churn, and especially a lot of things that have happened in the world of what do we do next, right? And so
so kind of specifically around the security directive stuff.
Yeah, some security director stuff I've been looking into, and just a lot of these assessments, when you go through them, they're very situational. They're very when you're measuring the maturity of a program, depends on how you read the question and how advanced you are in your capability. So just talking through, where do they want to go?
Right now for that challenge, do you find sitting down like across the table from somebody is better than doing it remote? Are you doing it all on location? What's your experience so far?
So it's blended. Yeah. So it just depends on, the availability of the client, where they're at as far as, physical location. I think it's a lot easier to get in the same room and whiteboard things out, talk through things, say, just a good example, not necessarily client specific, but when you talk about multi-factor authentication, sometimes an SMS or an authenticator app isn't the right approach, right? There's things like YubiKeys and, Duo Auth and, hardening workstations that you may not want to talk to some other, program to get its identity key. So just talking through, do you have multi-factor installed? What does that mean? And how much multi-factor do you need? That's always an interesting challenge to talk through. What is the right sized fit for the org? And from a complexity and a simplicity standpoint, when you implement controls, oftentimes it's a training moment. You've got to train a lot of people that have never done something a certain way. And so that can take years and months just to get everybody bought in on, hey, we're going to make a pretty big change here. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Good. Yeah, it's I mean, and that's part of the challenge that everybody's having, and making people more comfortable, especially for people that aren't familiar with other people coming in, thinking, that you may or may not understand their environment. How do you make somebody comfortable that you understand the technologies and understand the processes and the safety concerns when you're remote, when you're not actually looking them in the eye? It's difficult to get that trust, I feel, unless they've been through a couple of them. So
absolutely, 100%. I totally agree. And really, oftentimes when you're doing an assessment, it's not necessarily an audit function, right? Everybody always thinks it's an audit, and it's really, you're there to help. So the more honest and the more buy-in that you can get from people on both sides, and everybody just talking about more of a conversation, the better the output's always going to be, right? So
that's why that's one of the reasons why I actually like to, when I'm sitting down with them, or like I like to say, hey, log into that, show me, what's your day to day, how do you have this configured? And it is so many times that they'll log in and they'll see something and they're like, oh, that's not very smart. Now that I think about it, like now that I because they put on like dawn glasses, like it's like as they log in, they put on the my glasses, and they're like, I don't even have to say anything. They're like, yeah, we should probably change that.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you check the box, I mean, even if you actually do the control right, and you could say it's fully implemented, like, where is the room for improvement? Like, let's talk about how do we, yeah, we've got this, but is there any areas that we could tweak or make it a little bit better? And, more layers we can add in there that aren't going to make it too complicated, but add protection. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that's good. So, one of the things I've been working on, and, so I started tweaking some stuff this week. And I know that I'm going to be considering some firmware evaluation and stuff like that. And, or at least like how to express it. It's always difficult to analyze firmware in a SANS class, because it's just like, the vendors are going to be like, don't demonstrate on my stuff. You guys can't do that. Right. So, it's, I'm definitely have to work with the SANS team to understand what I can evaluate and what I can't in this space. But I just went out, as a part of my, I just wanted to pull some firmware into Ghidra again real quick. I haven't done it for a while. I know I'm going to have to go down this path. And then I started thinking, I went out and I grabbed an SE. I wanted to get power meters, and they just popped in my head. And so I started pulling down firmware for the SE ion meters, and, which are deployed in a lot of utility environments. I'm not sure how much they're deployed in liquid natural gas. I'm gonna have to consider that, because we're gonna base the 613 off of LNG deployments. But I started looking at the 7550 firmware, which is actually an RTU, and I realized that, oh man, I couldn't tell the architecture. I didn't have the actual device, right? So I got the firmware. I figured out how to extract it. I mean, it was pretty easy, extracting it and getting to the firmware. There were a few steps, but and then I tried to pull it in a Ghidra, and it wanted to know the architecture. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have it here. So I started thinking about ways to do it. And my buddy John Sawyer over at IO Active, we're constantly talking to each other. And he was like, "Have you used binwalk?" I mean, because I didn't realize that now they've written into binwalk to search for opcodes. And so it usually can tell, I mean, it can, if you do it correctly and use the proper option, it'll tell you what it's found as far as opcodes. And if you see a consistent amount of opcodes, then it's going to be PowerPC or ARM or something like that. And it'll tell you the Indianness and stuff like that. But you have to compile it correctly. In other words, there's different compression techniques that you can, each shop can use, and everybody uses a slightly different one. And if you don't have them compiled correctly, for instance, I installed binwalk into OSX using a brew, and then an apt in my APT and my Ubuntu. And when you just do it off its own, those packages, some of the stuff isn't compiled in. And so the better way to do it is to go out to the Git repository, download all of the libraries and stuff like that. And it can be a pain, especially if you've never done it before. And so John pointed me to, and I hate Docker. I mean, I don't hate Docker. I'm just an old man. I'm just an old
we
man.
all hate the Docker way is what it is, right?
Right.
We don't like the but it's almost like how everyone hates Splunk, but then everyone uses Splunk. It's just like,
right.
Oh, all right.
Well, I mean, I'm not doing app development. I'm not running. I don't need to spin up and spin down resources all the time. And certainly it's great for there are some instances for classes and stuff like that to do it. But he showed me a way to basically pointed me to a container, and it's you can kind of see it there. I think I don't have a good way to zoom in on it, but it's the CinCan, CIN, and they've developed a container for BinWalk. And it took me a little while to, and I've got a link up on there if anybody's wants to go try it out. But you install this, and then you can run commands against that Docker. You don't have to spin it up and down all the time. I'm sure there's a way to spin it up and run it. But anytime you want to run this, at least what you know is that in this container, it has all of the different compression libraries installed. So basically, it's the everything's installed to work with BinWalk. So yeah, I just started using it, and so I've got examples up there, and certainly these are examples out on the website of how to run a command to do some analysis. You have to point it to, and it's difficult to see. Let's see if I can switch over. Hang on just a second. I might go away for a second. We're gonna have to do this real quick.
We're doing it live.
Don't share the wrong screen. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Let's see if I can zoom. That's okay. This is gonna be horrible. It's not gonna be horrible. So you can actually, let's do it like this. So we can zoom in. Maybe that's a little better. No, it's not.
It's I can see it.
You can see it. We're not getting that old.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the Docker run V. You have to give it a destination of where basically you're setting up a variable for the directory that you want to search in. So that's the -V, and you can see present working directory, and then the /dot is the actual directory that we're in. And then the colon right there, after the colon is a /D. So that's going to be our root reference. And as you can see, I can use this. I use the /D down at the end to point to the compressed file. And that's actually the compressed firmware, the original firmware. And we have to extract the firmware from that. So that's how we're using that. And then down here at the bottom, I gave the example of using the -Y to have it analyze the type of architecture using the same techniques. And this is the Click PLC, and you can see it came out saying that it's a ARM executable 16-bit with thumb references, and it's Little Indian. So now I can go in and I can start attempting to pull that into Ghidra, and I can give it the proper architecture. So just wanted to go over something that I've been working on this week and looking at. It's always a challenge, especially when you have the device and you can't pull it apart and see the microcontroller kind of guessing at that stuff. But that's as far as I've gotten so far. I don't know how much further I'll get.
And I know we just said we all hate Docker, but that is nice from a training environment, because now you don't have to worry about the local student OS and its intricacies and, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just being an old man. You know, it's just like I like to say, get off my lawn, GIT, get off my lawn.
Why can't I use systemd in Docker? Oh, it's not the Docker way, right? It's
right.
Like,
but I mean, honestly, it's the more I think about it, this is one of the best ways to use BinWalk, because now you don't have to keep recompiling it. You don't have to like get a firmware and try to extract it and go, oh, I didn't build that in. So how do I rebuild this again? So, all right.
Use AnyRun?
Any.run?
Different example, but I mean, there's some interesting stuff that you can use out there with, I think they just spin up machines in the background, but
okay. Oh, is it a different type of container?
Yeah, it's not at that level, like not the bin file level, but I was just curious if you could actually set up a script to do it in AnyRun.
Okay. Yeah. Right. To make it a little bit easier. Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. I'd be worried about the, getting out of the directory and, but I mean, it wouldn't matter. It would just error out. So, we are at our 30 minutes. Hey, Ron, any parting thoughts or anything like that before we go off to our weekend?
Oh, I mean, actually, it's a Be a Fan Friday, which I tried to start at S4 and then I totally forgot. So, if you've ever heard, I got new T-shirts from DEF CON and
nice.
Black Hat. So Blue Mira.
Blue Mira. Okay.
I have a friend that worked up there, but I mean, to pitch them poorly, it seemed like they chose a very specific challenge, which is how do we get Windows logs into like a SIM, like one touch. They just focused on that and they're just killing it. So I'm a huge fan of them. I'm sure they've expanded and there's probably additional capability now, but man, talk about finding a huge pain point and just fill in the gap. So
yeah, I mean,
I try to every Friday I try to wear. It's kind of like being in your own band and then wearing the band T-shirt. It's kind of lame. Like, so I can't wear Saber stuff all the time. So every
right.
Friday I try to wear someone else's
Oh,
T-shirt.
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. And for people that aren't familiar with the Windows event logs, they're multi-line logs, and and depending on the application, they can be difficult to parse. And so if you find somebody that's doing it well, who was that again?
A Blumira, Blumira. So
Blumira. I got to write
yeah.
it down somewhere. I'll write it down. Actually, if you can throw a link up in Slack when you get a chance,
Oh, sure.
I want to go check it out. I want to be a fan too. So, Grayson, what about you? Parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts. We obviously there's a ton of people at DEF CON and Black Hat and B-Sides, all these conferences. I talked to a lot of people about just go. Everybody seems like they've been on the move. I think mental health is important. So take a weekend, relax, like find something that's not in the weeds and enjoy some peaceful time too. So it's always important to find that as well. So
100%. Find something outside. I'm finished. This is the last book of the Wheel of Time. So book 14.
Oh, wow.
15 is like the aftermath or whatever. But yeah, so I've been busy reading and encouraging my sons to read, trying to hang out, trying to set up date nights with some of our friends and stuff like that on the weekends. Like you said, Grayson, it's absolutely important that we get out of this and we get out into the real world. So I know it's and we have to sometimes we need to remind ourselves, sometimes we need to remind our friends. So great
Absolutely.
job with that, Grayson. Well, hey, you know what? We're a little bit over, so you already know my thoughts. I've already given them. Thank you, Ron and Grayson, for joining us. Thank you, everybody that was out there on LinkedIn and YouTube. Grayson, Tomcat, Martin, I see y'all. Thank you for coming back and encouraging this to go on. Absolutely, I enjoy this. We're gonna keep this going. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.